This lecture is all about the creative process. And you may have heard the joke about the person who gets really lost out in the middle of nowhere, finally finds a farmer to say, hey, I need direction. I need to get into Center City. And the farmer pauses, rocks back and forth on his feet, squints off to the distance and says, well, if I were going there, I sure wouldn't have started here. That's kind of what the creative process is for. It's when you know you need to get somewhere, but maybe you don't even know where that is. The creative process is a way to build your map as you're following it. Now, it's important to have in mind what creativity is when you're thinking about the creative process because, and I'm going to read this quote out to you because I think it's important. Creativity is not simply a matter of generating ideas. No, creativity is defined as the production of high quality, original, and elegant solutions to complex, novel, ill-defined problems. So if you just need to bake chocolate chip cookies, you just go get a chocolate chip cookie recipe and you do it. It might be new to you. That might make it difficult, but it's a known thing. Creativity is what you bring out when the answer that you need is an unknown. And that's going to happen more and more and more as you take on more responsibility in your personal lives and especially as you take it on at work. So you're really going to need this. Creativity is also a process. In addition to the definition from Michael Mumford at the University of Oklahoma. I'm going to take you through one model of the creative process. You can find ones out there that split the categories in slightly different places, but they all have these really important key steps. And some of those steps are things that we are tempted to skip, and that's really important not to do that. So, as we're thinking about this, where do we start? I'll give you this overview that we're looking at a 4-stage process: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification are the things that you'll set out to do. But I don't want to give you the impression that just because there are these known steps that any of this is simple, easy, or direct. We want creativity in the creative process to look like the line on the bottom. I guarantee you, on any interesting, worthy problem, it's going to look much more like the line on top. You're going to go forward, you're going to go backwards, you're going to go up and down and sideways. All of that. Don't let the question of efficiency distract you on this, because excuse me, worrying about taking the direct path means that actually you're not going to get there. Giving yourself the freedom to look off to the side, to try a new thing out, to test a new method is not a distraction. It is a requirement for doing this work. So, step 1, preparation. You might be tempted to say, okay, I've got the problem. I'm just going to try for the solution. Again, any worthy problem you're not going to succeed doing that. You're just going to start banging your head into a wall. Instead, give yourself a really good foundation for doing your problem solving. I think of this as being like putting in the fertilizer before you plant your garden. That's what really makes things grow. So to do this, talk to people, listen, just chat up your subject with everyone you can, as long as you haven't, you're not in a workplace where you signed a non-disclosure agreement, you can really feel free and comfortable taking your ideas out for a test run. And even before that, saying, hey, I'm thinking about the future of the pet care industry. Do you have any pets? What's your favorite thing to do with your pet? What makes you most frustrated about being a pet owner? These things give you so much more to work with and higher quality things to work with. This won't only happen with people. You can also go online. You can go to the library. You can go to those text-based and video-based resources that are also going to give you really great associated information. Think about the history of your topic. Think about, is there any industry that is similar? I might think about pet care. People like to, a lot of times, let's say they have pets that are active. I might look at sports for a new trend. Actually, this is a truly amazing thing. I read an article about the food industry, and this was an article in the New Yorker. And all of the trends that happen in our regular food, but especially trends in pet food, are led by advances in the military. Because the military has a really complex problem to solve about feeding soldiers in ways that are highly transportable, that give the nutrition and calories that they need, that will last a long time, that won't risk getting anyone sick, and that don't have all kinds of waste and aren't difficult to create. So they're even testing imagine that you were the person figuring out how to feed someone who needs to, can't get distractingly hungry while they're flying a fighter jet. They can't put down their tray table and get out a sandwich while they're flying and sitting in that tiny cramped space. And they've actually made, it sounds questionable to me, but I bet the people who are eating it are really grateful for it. Like food in a tube. And you can imagine turkey dinner sensations, but comes out of a tube almost like toothpaste. That is a real innovation that was developed by the military for pilots that then trickles down and became something that was implemented for baby food. And could trickle down again to come up with a whole new selection of things related to pet food. I mean, actually, now that I think of it, my partner's favorite thing is to give our cat a treat from a tube of tuna fish. Maybe that even is related to that. So, the greater especially breadth of knowledge that you have, the more likely you are to be able to think of that weird connection that might be the breakthrough that you need. So talk to people and learn from things that people have made to prepare yourself for creativity. And then you think, great, now is it time to tackle the problem? No, it is not. This is possibly the most important phase, and it's the one that people give short shrift to. You really need to slow down and give your brain a chance to make connections. Take a hike, stare out the window. If you wash the dishes by hand, let your mind wander. Don't listen to a podcast, even though that's a great way for preparation research. But when you move into incubation mode, you need to let your mind wander. Don't force your way directly. Let yourself take that meandering path. Otherwise, how are you going to get from a fighter jet to a cat treat? You have to give yourself this break. This is another chance for you to be inspired for a stretch quest. Something like, if you usually go for a walk with a podcast or music, try doing it without it. If you usually are distracting yourself, this is the hardest thing, because we've really built a world where there's always access to some kind of entertainment. And we're denying ourselves those slightly bored moments. It may not be true that Isaac Newton thought of gravity because he was sitting under an apple tree and an apple fell on his head, but it's no coincidence that that legend has him just sitting under a tree, because that's the kind of mode you need to force yourself to be in sometimes to make room for these ideas to happen. Then you start to see the seeds of those ideas that you fertilized, you planted, you gave them time to grow, and they start to pop their heads up above the ground. And when the first one does, you might be tempted to say, great, I've got it, I'm done, I can pat myself on the back, where's my gold star? Don't do that. You're not done. You probably don't have it. At least you don't have it consciously. You need to give yourself time and give yourself the task of finding many solutions. And your design fiction project is actually designed to try to force you in that direction. You may be tempted. You may think, I can see where this is going. We can just jump to the end. I know I've always wanted to do, have this business in X. Don't do that to yourself. Give yourself the real chance to have new ideas. The best way to have a good idea is to have a lot of ideas. I could preach about this much longer. I'm going to trust that you've got it, but this is really important. Give yourself the time to let things incubate. Then, once you've got your dozens of ideas, I hope it's that many ideas, and not before that, then you can go out and test things. And remember the people you talked to at the beginning about their experiences, with the pet industry. Go back to them and say, hey, I thought about, I was thinking about the process of feeding your pet. And so first of all, could you tell me, what kind of food does your pet have? What's your routine around that? Okay, great. Here is my artificial intelligence pet food scoop. And I want you to try it out and let me watch you using it so I can see how it goes. Then you try it out, you see how it goes, and if you're lucky, you will see a problem. And you'll see it at this testing stage instead of finding it out after you've built the factory, instead of finding it after you've invited everyone to the press conference. You want to find these things out as early as possible. Now, out of all these stages, they're surely all equally important in the sense of all being necessary for your creative practice. But I just want to put a pitch in there for the incubation stage. I think it doesn't get the respect it deserves because it doesn't look like anything's happening based on our usual metrics for that. You're going to have to defend your time for the incubation stage. When I was working as a vice president at TELUS Spark, the science center just north of the zoo, I would literally assign my staff, okay, before our next meeting, at least 2 days, and this was during paid work time, I assign you to go out and take a walk because you need to have fresh ideas. You need a chance to let your brain work. It's not going to happen while you're trying to answer emails. Just put everything down, go outside, let your mind wander. Because people were hesitant to do that without not just my endorsement, but me requiring it. And you've got to stick that up for yourself, stick up for yourself to do that. And don't worry about finding the right thing immediately, because all those dozens of ideas that you try and don't work, or maybe you don't even bother trying them because you found one that was great when you started testing, those are all valuable and part of the process. It's the hardest thing about creativity, particularly for people who have a lot of experience of success in their history. If you are someone who has a high achieving record, it may be difficult for you to let failure in to the stages of the creative process. And that is often the biggest challenge students have. They come to me and say, just tell me how to get it right. Just tell me how to get an A. And in this class, and in more and more of the things that you do in the future, saving enough time and giving yourself the freedom to go a little bit off path is incredibly important to getting to answers when you start to face truly challenging questions. This is even true. There's an amazing case study of people working at Procter and Gamble. They do just about everything, like shampoos, toothpastes, cleaning products, like just a huge company. And they were facing a moment when they might have to do a recall. And a recall is an incredibly expensive and embarrassing thing to have to do. It's going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you reputation, because it's admitted that something that you did was seriously wrong in a dangerous way. And they had a whole process for deciding whether or not to do a recall. But they had this new person, a newly promoted person that was part of making the decision. And she had experience with meditation. And then she got her first call of having to make this decision about a recall. And she said, I don't want us to rush to the crisis room. I want everyone who's a decision maker to go someplace private and sit quietly for an hour before we have this conversation. And just ponder this and see where that leads you. And then when they came together, everyone immediately said, it's clear that we need to do a recall. And this is a decision that would normally take them days of high stress. But by giving themselves a chance to think and a chance to slow down, they were able to make that decision very quickly and with a lot of clarity. So I guess when I promised that I was off my soapbox about this, I was wrong. Now I'll truly step off of it, at least for this lecture. You'll probably hear it again. You are starting your work with your teams, so I've got a couple of slides about team norms. I just want to say that good teams happen on purpose. And any effort you put into making this a strong team will pay off in multiples in your ability to work together this term. So I've got some norms here that I'd like you to look at. Pause so I'm not talking over you while you're reading it. And then also, I want you to just think about, how am I going to commit to being a supportive partner with my teammates? And will they tell me how they are making a commitment as well? I strongly recommend just Google IDEO, which is a great and influential design company, really worth knowing about if you don't know about them already. They are very generous in sharing their tools, and Google their guidelines for brainstorming to see some sample things that you might want to adopt for your team. And you've got the sample there of the kinds of things that they have. Like, the last thing you wanted to brainstorm is someone who, instead of coming up with ideas, only talks about why the ones already mentioned won't work. You know what it's like to have that person on a brainstorm. You may have been that person on a brainstorm. We've probably all been that person on one day at least. But make the commitment not to do that to each other. And take a look at their other norms to see which ones you want to adopt as well. That's it.